Now that we've gone through the resources for Stage 5 lesson on improper fractions and mixed numbers, we can start to summarize the lesson. Firstly, looking at the CPA approach. From the student book, we can think about 17 thirds and how to use concrete materials, simple concrete materials like paper, which all schools have. It doesn't have to be colorful paper like this. It could be any paper. It doesn't matter at all. But having to make sure that the paper are all equal so that we can say this is a whole, this is another whole. 17 thirds, how do we show that? If these are thirds, can I show 17 thirds? That would be a good way to start off my lesson. Or if I felt I was unsure about the class's understanding, as a teacher, you've assessed them, you know your class better than anyone else. If I'm unaware or unsure if they know what an improper fraction is or a mixed number, then what I might want to do is just before I start to do this, I'll have a pre-anchor task. So I'll have a task just to assess them. Can you show me what a fraction looks like? What is a fraction? Can you draw a picture of a fraction? Can you use these to show me what a quarter looks like? That way, you're getting the confidence up for the children, but at the same time, you're also assessing where they're at. Are they ready to jump here? Or do I need to do a bit more pre-teaching before I jump onto the anchor task? When I'm happy, then I can start to ask them, can you use these? If these are thirds, can you use them to make 17 thirds? In today's class, we saw that first thing they did, they had 17 of these, which is great. They knew that these are thirds, so 17 thirds meant 17 lots of thirds. But what they forgot in our lesson at the beginning was that 3 of these, 3 thirds, make a whole. So when I indicated that on the flip chart, what happened? They all burst out in excitement. Oh, I know, I get it now. So that small reminder, sometimes as a teacher, we give too much away. I didn't want to just say, no, that's not right. I knew they were on the right tracks. They just needed a small reminder. And that reminder of how many of these do I need to make a whole? Can you now rewrite this in a way that we can talk about wholes and fractions, mixed numbers, and then they were ready to fly for most of those children. So this is a really good question. The way I would differentiate again in this question is through the CPA approach. For your slower learners, those who are struggling, they can use these to understand thirds and how many thirds in a whole, and therefore come to a conclusion how many wholes are there in 17 thirds and how many fractions are left. This will allow them to then move on to this section and where you can assess their understanding through the Let's Try section. I would quickly assess them using the mini whiteboards, and then I can allow them to pair assess each other by using this question here. A, B, C, D, 4 questions, and they can assess each other or assess themselves. If you want to look at self-assessment, you can ask them for the answers. One thing that teachers tend to do is give the answers and let them mark themselves. This is a big mistake. Why? Because as a teacher, you just don't know who got it right. But if you ask for the answer here, then what happens? They give you the answer, so you are getting feedback from them that I understand or I don't understand. Hopefully, most should understand. Another thing that I did to differentiate, even in this task in the lesson, in the question, what does it say? Look at the colored parts of the shapes. Write the mixed number. I asked them, once you finish writing the mixed number, I want you to then write down the improper fraction. So they worked out the mixed number, 2 and, in this case, 1/5, 2 and 1/5. And then I asked them to write down the mixed number, which was 5, 10, 11/5. So that's part of the lesson. It doesn't say here to find the improper fraction, but as a teacher, I know that's going to come up. So I can assign that task for them. That's another way to differentiate. If I wanted to, if they finished all of this and I didn't want them to move on, what I might do is I might ask them, can you tell me a story? Stories are really something that children love. But at the same time, when it comes to math stories, we neglect that as teachers. But can you tell me a story about 2 wholes and 1/4? 2¼ Is that possible? It might be something really simple, like I went to the shops and I bought 2 whole boxes of chocolate. And then I bought 1 piece of chocolate, which was 1/4 of the whole box. And altogether, I had 2 wholes and 1/4 of a box. It might be something so simple as that, but that requires a lot of thinking. And you have to be a really capable mathematician that understands fractions really well to tell a story about fractions or any part of math.